Hi, I'm George Pearson, and in this video I'll be showing you how to do a Photoshop Elements double exposure. Okay, let's get to it. In this Photoshop Elements double exposure picture, we'll be taking two photos, one of this horse and then one of these horses running down here, and merge them together to create this double exposure effect. We'll also be adjusting contrast and values and so forth to make the picture just a little bit more interesting. Let's quickly look at the two photos that I've used. I'm just going to get this docked up here. There we go. So here's the two photos. That's our first one. And here's the second horse photo. We'll combine these two to give us the final on that. Let's just go ahead and take a look at that one more time. There we go. Now, first thing we need to do, I'm just going to get this out of our way, is open up this file. We'll be using this as our basic file. Now, if you don't know how to float your windows, you can't float your windows, let me show you that real fast. Normally, inside of Photoshop Elements, the windows are docked like this. To float them, go up to Edit, come down to Preferences and General, and make sure these two checkboxes are checked. Allow floating documents in expert mode, and also enable floating document window docking. With those two checked, you can then grab the title bar here, pull it down, and then float your window. And the reason for floating the window is that we can easily put this image inside of that image. This is just the easiest way to do this. Just open this as a window, grab the background, drag it over on top of that picture. There you go. That's how easy it is. We can then close this file out. We're done with that. So there we go. We now have both pictures in the same file. We need to be able to see through this to the other one, getting our actual double exposure effect. That's simply a transparency effect, just adjusting the opacity in here, making it more transparent. So we're on layer 1. This is our horses layer. I'll just name this one so we can keep track. There we go, horses. Just double click in there and you can then name that. Set the opacity up here to 65. That's what we need for this demonstration. And with that, we can now see both pictures. So we're still on our horses layer, so I can then bring the horses up here and then find the right spot. Just looking inside the body, paying attention to what's inside the body there. Just find the right spot. We want this horse here to be almost to the tail, but not quite. A little bit of space around that horse's head is good. So about like that. There we go. Okay, that's the first part. That is now set and ready to go. We'll come in and put a layer mask on that in just a bit once we make our layer mask. Now we're going to be needing a few layers of this horse as we go. We'll bring them in as we need to use them. But first off, let's take the background, drag it up to the new layer button right there, and then hide the background. I always do this in my projects so that I keep my original untouched. Just in case I mess things up, I can always go back to my original photo and it's right there inside the file. It's just a real nice, easy way to do that. Okay, we're now going to make a selection around this horse and then use the Refine Edge tool to refine that selection and then use that to create a layer mask. What we want to do is we want to separate the horse and the foreground from the background. That allows us to put the horse's layer right here inside of the horse. It also allows us to be able to adjust the settings in the foreground separately from the settings for that background sky and mountain. So two reasons for that. Okay, I'll grab the zoom tool here. Let's zoom in. There we go. I'll start way over here, left hand side, and we'll just grab one of the lasso tools over here. Make sure that in the tool options down below that you're on the new selection. Set the feathering at 1 pixel, and then choose any tool you like. I'll be using the lasso here. Now this is just a real rough lasso. We'll be coming back in and cleaning this up with the Refine Edge tool once we have this first bit made. I'll start outside here, and I'm just going to come just right around everything. Just kind of stay fairly close, just like that, and just work around the whole picture. There we go, around the tail and so forth. Now if you get up to the top edge like this, just hold the space bar down. You can then move the page, let go of the space bar. Don't move your mouse, so your mouse is still in the same spot. And you can then continue around making your selection. Same thing, hold the space bar down and drag, and then just continue around making this selection. There we go, and space bar again, and up and around. When you have a picture like this where it's on a real distinct background and there's a great degree of contrast separation and color separation, using the Refine Edge tool to make that selection makes it real fast and easy, saves you a lot of work. If this was on a different background where the horse was more like the background, maybe on a brown landscape, then I might have had to have gone in and made my selection the hard way using the polygonal lasso tool and just taking time to go around and do a careful selection. Okay, to get the edge, come off the edge, come straight down. There we go. Straight across the bottom here again. Hold the space bar down to move that. There we go. Come clear back and then back up to the beginning and overlap the beginning just a little bit. And there's our selection. Now, backing up, we can see that we need to get this piece in here selected and that piece in here selected and this piece over here. So this is all selected. So let's come over here and change to subtract from selection. That's that option there. Now, just come in and do a little shape right in here. That removes that piece. And then we'll come in and do this part in the middle of the legs. And again, just kind of work around the little bushes and stuff here, grasses and things. And again, spacebar. There we go. Move that around, back to our beginning. Gets that out, spacebar, and then let's get this last little bit right down in here. And once this is done, we can now use the Refine Edge tool. Now in Photoshop Elements 15, which I'm using here, you can just click on Refine Edge right there. In earlier versions of Photoshop Elements, it's up under the Select button and Refine Edge there. Does the same thing, brings the same tool up, just like that. Okay, and here on the tool options down below, we have the size set at 35. That's the default, and I'll leave it at the default. I have the view mode set to overlay, which is my favorite way of working with this. I have all of these settings just left at their defaults. And we're working with the Refine Radius tool. Then all you have to do is just paint right along the overlap there so that the tool is overlapping that space and getting both the picture and the background and the matte right there. Just go ahead and just continue to work along like that and just kind of following along that edge. I like to do this in little short bits. I don't do the whole thing in one go. Do little bits. That way if I mess up on this, I can always just back up, do undo for that last step, and then repeat that last little bit. So just doing this in little strokes at a time makes it a lot easier. And then just continue on around, and let's do the whole outline here of the horse. We're then going to want to adjust the contrast a little bit. You can see it right down here, maybe up here. It's not quite complete, so we'll go ahead and we'll increase our contrast as well. Now if you need to move the picture, easy way here is just to grab the hand tool right from the Refine Edge and then move your picture over and then back to the Radius tool right there. And same thing again, we'll just work along the edge and we'll go along and get the whole horse and the background. See, I'm kind of sawing into this a little bit, zigzagging a bit. That's to get into those little bits in there. If you see little bits of the background showing, just go over those again. We'll clean this up as a final step, of course, but this will make it fairly easy. There we go. When you're doing things like this, you have this grass or you have fur or hair, anything which is really hard to create a selection around, using the Refine Edge tool is perfect for this. I don't always use the Refine Edge tool, but sometimes it's the perfect tool to use. Now we'll also be putting this back on top of the same background, which makes this even easier. Okay, back to our hand tool, and let's continue on around the horse. Up on this part here, since I'm using the Refine Edge tool for the grass down below and for the tail, I'm just going ahead and using it for the whole horse because it's just a lot faster that way. It does a real clean job. Areas like this where there's a real definite difference between the subject and the background. Makes it real easy to do this without any real time spent on that. Just kind of paint around and you're done, and let Photoshop Elements do all the work for you. Okay, we're just about down to the tail, and that's getting very close to finishing up this step. Here we go. Here's where the Refine Edge is really going to help us out, is on this tail. And let's just move back over here, get our last bit, and then we're all set. Now, if you have a tail like this or other hair kind of sticking out, what I'll do is I'll come out and do the outside parts first, and then come back in and come further in on a second pass. And that seems to do the best at getting those edges. And there we go. Let's kind of finish that off. And now we're down to the last little bit, which is the final leg and the last bit of grass, which is right there. Let's go ahead and finish that off, and then we'll have the basic selection made. We'll do a little tweak on the contrast just to make sure that we're really nice and tight on that. Okay, so there's the basic selection done. Now on some parts of this, it may be a little thin, and that's typical. So to try to thicken up the mask, make it as sharp as we can, let's come down to contrast, and I'll pull the contrast up. And I'll set this one at 50%, about halfway up. That's usually pretty good. I'd never go more than that. But that's going to harden up those edges for us. And there we go. That takes care of that. There's just a real thin piece right in here. Doesn't matter. A little bit right in the tail. Doesn't matter because we're putting this picture back on itself, back onto the same picture. So because of that, it's going to be, invisible. That'll just disappear for us. Okay, there we go. That's our basic setting. Now in this one, you want to set this to a selection, output to selection. You have lots of options in here, layer mask, new layer, so forth. I'm outputting to a selection, and I'll show you why in just a second. Choose OK. There it is. There's a selection. Now here's why I output that. Since we spent some time making this, I want to be able to save this selection in case I need to go back and do it again. So let's go up here to Select, come down to Save Selection right there, and then just type in horse. And OK, that's just a safety. That's the only reason why I did that. Now that we have that selection made, let's zoom back out. I'll just go up here and fit on screen. There we are. And come up to the Add Layer Mask button. Click on that. That takes that selection and turns it into a layer mask. There we go. Now the reason why I said a little bit of blue showing through here and around the tail isn't really critical, because we'll be having this on top of the existing background, and it just fixes it right away. It just blends right back in again. So there we go. That's the first part. Now I can show you how the double exposure works at this stage. Let's just bring our horses back up. There we go. Come down to the horse layer. Notice the light blue outline around the layer mask. That's where it's going to be as soon as you make that layer mask. But if it happens to be over here, like this, just double click on the layer mask for the light blue outline. Hold the Alt key down, grab the layer mask and drag it straight up. That copies the layer mask from this layer up to this layer, and now the horses are just inside of this horse. We've actually brought those together. To make it a little bit easier to see, to hide this checkerboard pattern, I'm going to put a white layer right down here. There's also a variation if you don't want to use that background. The white is a variation on this. So let's go up to Layer, come down to New Fill Layer and Solid Color. There we go. Choose OK, and it should be set at white to begin with. If not, if it's anywhere else, just drag that up to upper left-hand corner, set it white, choose OK. White background. This just kind of hides that checkerboard stuff, so you can see this a bit easier. All right, now coming in here, you see we have this line. See there, you can kind of see the outline there of that layer. There it is. There's a line right down here on the legs, and I don't want to have this in the tail, and I don't want to have this up in the head. I want it just in the body area in here. we can do that by adjusting the layer mask up here. So let's go ahead and fix that. Now if you notice here, the black area is hiding the picture. The white area is showing the picture. So I want to hide part, more of the picture. So I'll do that by using black. So make sure your foreground color is black. If it isn't, click on this little icon right down here. Click on that little reverse that you have black in the foreground. Go up to the paintbrush, and I have my brush set at a soft edge 300 pixel, and that's just on the drop down list. So you can actually just scroll down and find that, or just pick any soft brush like that one and then type in 300 here. It gives us a nice large size brush, and it's a soft edge. So, and again, we're on the layer mask. There we go. So I'm just going to come in here and just paint up a little bit like that, and that masks out those areas. I'll come in, I'll clean the tail out. There we go, tail's out. The legs are good. And then let's clean the head out. Just about that far so that the trees in here come up into the neck. There we go, there's the basic double exposure. So that's all the hard stuff done. Now we can worry about making the picture itself a little more interesting. So go ahead and we'll do that. And let's go ahead and we'll hide the layer mask for a second so I can see that looks good. And let's put our background back on again. There's the background. Let's bring the horses back in again. Double exposure effect. Now notice with the 65%, you see some of the muscle in here from the foreground horse. And that's what we want to have. We want to have some of that muscle showing, and then this kind of painted into the image. Now you can adjust the opacity level to get just the effect that you want. There's 43%. That's a little more subtle in here. There's 100%. That's too strong. I kind of like 65%, but this is a personal taste issue. You can go a little bit softer if you want to, a little bit more if you want to. It's up to you. It's kind of a personal taste, but I kind of like 65% on that. Okay, that takes care of the horse part of this and our double exposure. Let's now go ahead and work on the background and improve the background. I want to have the background stronger, and we can make the background stronger by using a blend mode on the background. To do that, let's take our background layer, drag that up here to the new layer button, and that gives us two backgrounds. Now I want to make sure I'm working just on the background itself and not on the foreground. It shouldn't matter because we have our mask up here. But if you want to make sure, just doubly make sure, you can actually copy your mask down to guarantee this, that you're only adjusting the background. So move back up here to our horse layer. Make sure the light blue outline is on the layer mask. Hold the Alt key down and drag this down to our background copy right there. Double click on that so we have the light blue outline around this layer mask. I want to have this inverted. Right now it allows us to work on the horse and the foreground. I want to work on just the background. So go up to the filter menu, come down to adjustments and invert. It just reverses that. So now I can work on the background and it's protecting the horse. Not really critical again at this stage because that's taken care of up here, but I wanted to show you that you can do this reverse if you want to on your layer mask to reverse which part is being controlled. Let's now give this a blending mode to increase the values in here of the background. So go up to our blending modes and we'll be using overlay here, and there we go. So if I hide and show that layer, it just kind of increases the look. It sharpens up a little bit, it increases our colors a bit, makes it a bit more vibrant, a bit more striking. And I think it just looks nicer that way. So there we go, that takes care of the background part of this. I now want to bring the focus more into the horse, and we'll do that by darkening down the outer edges of this. So let's make sure we're on our background horse layer. Double click on the horse side of the picture so you see the light blue outline around the horse. There we are. Go up to filter, come down to correct camera distortion, and we'll be using the vignette right here. Notice we don't see that overlay on this. We don't see the layer mask on this. That's fine. On vignette, take the amount here and pull it all the way to the left and notice how it darkens down the outer edge. Now it's not going to look just like this on our final because this is blending with this background, so it's not going to be as strong of an effect. Choose OK, and there we go. Just a little bit of darkening in there, kind of just darkens on the edge. I want a little more than that, so we're going to take this a bit further, and we'll do that by adding on to that. Take the background layer, bring this up here to a new layer. There we go, there's a new layer. Let's now do the same vignette on this layer and go just a little bit more. I'm not going to put as much vignette onto this though, so same thing. Filter, correct camera distortion, and this time let's just set it down to about -20. You can see here how it's darkening that down. You don't want to go all the way here. We want to have just a little bit more. But about -20, I'll just type that in. There we go. That should do it. Choose OK. And that just helps to darken those edges down just a little bit more, helping to focus our attention on the horse. There's without that additional darkening. And there it is without the color fix. Okay, so far so good. Now, because we have increased the values on our background, the horse is looking just a little bit washed out. So let's make an adjustment for the horse as well. Come up here to our horse layer, and let's add a new layer here. Layer, adjustment layer, and levels. Where it says use previous layer to create clipping mask, click on that. This links the level adjustment to just that one layer. Choose OK. Here's our adjustments. Now in here, I can increase the darks, which increases our contrast on the dark end like that. Makes the colors more vibrant. And I can do the same thing on the whites. I can increase the light end on this. So we're going to be doing the same options here. And on the dark end, pull this one up to about 40, 41. I actually used 41 in my example. There's 41 on the dark side. And then bring the whites up a little bit. I have mine set at 242. There we go. And just click on close, and there's the adjustment. Here it is without. Here it is with. It just makes the colors a bit more vibrant in there and a bit more interesting. There we go. Now it's too dark on the horse's head, so we can mask the horse's head out of the adjustment. Notice that the adjustment has a layer mask automatically. We know that black hides and white shows, so right now the whole adjustment is showing on the complete layer right there. So we have our black. Let's go to the paintbrush. Make sure that the light blue outline is around the layer mask. There's our paintbrush, and then just paint right over the head here. And what that does is it removes the adjustment from just the head. So we get our head back to normal again, so we can see all of our detail in there, and then we have everything else increased on the values. And there we go. That's how to do a double exposure here in Photoshop Elements. Let's just float this window, and I'll bring this in a little bit. There we go. So there's our double exposure here inside of Photoshop Elements. Thank you for watching my video. I hope you found it useful. If you like this video, click on the like button below to let others know. You can click the subscribe button so you don't miss any of my videos in the future. I'm frequently uploading new training videos. Don't forget to check out my website at howtogurus.com.